All right. Well, we'll let people arrive here into the webinar, and then we'll get started. If you are live with us in Zoom webinar, go ahead and head over to the chat and just let us know where you're from. And if you want to add a little bonus item, I'm always curious what people's favorite ice cream is, because I love ice cream and it gives me good ideas for my next flavor. So I am in Knoxville, Tennessee, and really digging the Cherry Garcia lately. I gotta say, it's pretty excellent. It's kind of a throwback to the old Ben Jerry days. So fantastic. Wow, we got some more Tennessee representation. We got Dorothy from Memphis and Marielle from Johnson City. Fantastic. We're taking over.
Yeah, Tennessee strong.
Yep, Spencer, you're in Irvine, where my previous company co-founder lives. Great area. Mint chocolate. You can't argue with mint chocolate. That's a classic. Wesley from Las Vegas. Wesley, did you go to Intuit Connect this year? And if so, hopefully you had a chance to come by the Uncat booth and get an Uncat Beanie Baby. They were popular though. They went fast. Yes, you did. Fantastic. So you've got one. Either you've got one or you gifted it to a lucky someone. A lot of people grabbed them for themselves, but also for kids, grandkids, pets, etc. Charles from Turlock. And I assume the CA is at
Turlock. California. Turlock, California.
Is it? Where is that in California?
It's in the Central Valley.
Okay. All right. Because I've been everywhere in California. I grew up in Santa Barbara County, but Turlock escaped me. So, all right. Awesome. It's probably fair to say that where I'm from, probably most people don't recognize either, which is Los Olivos, California. At the time I grew up there, population 800. So I always like to say I was first or second in a graduating class of 2 from my elementary school representing. All right, cool. We got Loveland, Colorado. That's a great area. And yes, and okay, so Wesley, we saw each other in Las Vegas and in Nashville for ZeroCon. So you're hitting all the big shows just like we are. Well, super. Thank you all for joining. I'm joined here by Spencer with Tallyfor. I'm Brandon from Uncat. We've done this webinar before. Everyone liked it so much, we figured we'd take it on the road. Spencer and I have a lot of fun hanging out and showing our respective apps. We both made a ton of progress with our platforms over the last year. So Tallyfor keeps getting better and better and faster at knocking out tax returns. We at Uncat have tried to continue to improve the way we deal with uncategorized transactions. And then over the past year and a half or so, we added requests, so the ability to get other documents back from clients like bank statements, W-9, stuff like that, as well as receipts. So a big receipt module for allowing clients to basically import, and then we'll process and match receipts to transactions in QuickBooks. So we're excited to show you that. Spencer came up with the title for today's webinar. Let me share my screen so everyone can see. Of course, you saw it if you registered. So let me pull it up. There we go. And let me go into slideshow mode. Boom. From pile of docs to completed tax return in 30 minutes. This is one of the best webinar titles, I think, of all time. So we'll kind of show you that process here. I'll kick it off because I start with the pile of docs part, and then Tallyfor makes it super, super fast to complete the tax return. Spencer, anything I'm missing? You want to jump in and say a few words at the get-go here?
No, I just, I think it's apt to started the conversation we had when we initially met. And yeah, I was like, gosh, man, it's like with Uncat, an accounting system in Tallyfor, you could pretty much, start with the shoebox and do something quite a bit more graceful with it than what folks are forced to do traditionally.
There you go. I like it.
Glad to bring it to life and share kind of the playbook here.
Putting shoeboxes to better use, right? Like those little
exactly
dioramas that we did in grade school. Like, why not use it for that?
Exactly.
Not for all the files for the end of the year. Well, fantastic. So yeah, we will circulate this slide deck and obviously the recording. So if you're joining us on Zoom or on LinkedIn, we'll get this out to everybody after the fact, so you'll have the slides. But basically, this is kind of the framing of the problem, right? What we experienced prior to building Uncat was that we frequently send a spreadsheet of uncategorized transactions to the client, usually on a monthly basis. There were usually a lot of them. And then it was an exercise in what we call chasing cats to get the client to respond, get decent information back. And then we'd have to copy paste each line back into QuickBooks. And it was such a cumbersome process. We decided to build an app for that, literally, to do the syncing and do the matching with us and for us to enable that client communication. So If this is what the desk looks like, then we will show you in a minute sort of a live product demo of how Uncat can simplify getting information back about uncategorized, but also asking clients for additional information. So we started just by focusing on what we call uncats, those uncategorized transactions, expenses, assets, deposits. But then people said, well, hey, my client's loving Uncat. They're in there all the time. Can we ask them for a few more things, like a W-9 for some of their vendors, like a bank statement from the previous month that didn't pull into QuickBooks, things like that. So we added that module. And again, it's just to save you a lot of time with managing clients so that you can apply that time to, value-added advisory services, add more clients to your firm. That's typically, because it's such a growing industry, it enables you to continue to expand the footprint of serving your clients. Yeah, we help get your docs in order, tracking missing items. We try to keep the interface super, super simple, which I'll show you in a second. But the key is for clients to be able to use it and want to use it. And so, for example, they don't have to have a QuickBooks or a Xero login. They don't have to sign in with a password. They can just click a magic link and they'll come straight in and answer your questions for you. And then they can go back to building their business. So we try to keep it simple for them, which then, of course, encourages communication back to you. Turning chaos into clarity. That's just a great slide knocked out by Jason Harry and the marketing team. I like the tagline, and I think it applies both to Uncat and Tallyfor. So I'll show you these next few slides. Pretty self-explanatory, gives you a sense a little bit, but I'll show you live in a second what Uncat looks like, but it gives you a sense of, the categorizing of transactions that were previously unknown. And then, yeah, I'm going to show you that now. So, and then we'll jump back to Tallyfor. So let me escape here and jump into the screen share. This is uncat.com. And so this is where, if you haven't been here already, if you're not a customer already or have never tried it, just swing over here, click start a free trial. It goes for a week. You can test it with as many clients as you want, unlimited users, unlimited transactions, and get a sense of how the app works. But when you first create your account, sign in to a general ledger platform, we'll call it QuickBooks Online since that's the majority. But you can also be on QuickBooks Desktop or Xero. We have connections for all three platforms. Then you'll set up a client. And what that means is tell us which accounts you want us to sync in. So let us know uncategorized expense, uncategorized asset. You can choose any accounts from the chart of accounts for that client as you want. And then as soon as transactions hit those accounts, right, they can't stay in the bank feed. They need to come into the ledger and hit those accounts. We'll instantly sync them into Uncat. You don't have to do anything. Once you set it up, it will just sync in the background forever. And you can choose how far back you want to sync. So as we approach end of year, as we approach tax deadline, a lot of people will do a cleanup, especially for a new client that's just come to your firm. You might need to go back for 6 months or a year to make sure everything's clear so that you can close the books and get the right information over to a platform like Tallyfor that Spencer's going to talk about. There's some additional settings. There's a few highlights that I'll show you. Notification settings. This is how often the client will get notified. Uncat works by default on a weekly cadence. So the best practice in our experience, and Uncat's been live with thousands and thousands of clients and about 1,000 firms for the last 5 years, weekly works really well. You wait till the end of the month, a lot of clients are like, I've traveled 3 or 4 times. It's been 30 days. I just can't remember that transaction. Weekly keeps them up to speed. They can remember, oh yeah, that was last week and I paid for this, etc. So we recommend a weekly cadence. You can define the days of the week, 1 or more, that you want them to get a notification. And again, that will come through email, but you can also put their phone number in Uncat and we'll send them a text message notification. And that works really well for clients that are hard to reach or might not be checking their inbox too often. SMS kind of cuts through the clutter, so they'll get the text message, and all they have to do is click the magic link in the email or the text message, and it'll take them straight into Uncat. No need to pause to remember a password or reset anything. It'll just take them straight in. Uncat's super customizable. So the default for a client, let me show you the default first. The default for a client is you're asking a client to describe a transaction and optionally upload an attachment like a receipt. However, if you have a client that knows their chart of accounts, or you want to ask them for a class or customer information, or whether it's billable or not, you can enable this top toggle switch and then choose which fields are visible, editable, and required. So it gives you quite a bit of flexibility depending on the sophistication level of your client to get the information back from them that you need in order to properly close the books. So in this example, you can even see we're requiring the client to categorize their own transactions, but you'll be able to review their selections and override if they make any errors. All right, so The last thing I'll show you is where you invite client users. Again, each client, as many users as you want. Uncat billing is really simple. It's just based on the number of client files that you connect. So the number of connections with QuickBooks Connect or Xero or QuickBooks Desktop or some combination of all three. So it's $9 a month per connection. Under each connection, unlimited transactions can sync back and forth, unlimited users, unlimited assignments. So it's very flexible. So here is an example with two users for this client that we've invited. Sometimes the client will just have one, sometimes there might be 20. Here you can invite them. And when you do, here's an example of how we assigned this user to only see expenses from their credit card. So if they're uncategorized and they originated from this user's Visa, they're going to see it on their dashboard, but they don't need to see the rest of the transactions. And meanwhile, here's an example of adding a phone number. So this user is going to get a text message notification every time we send it out. So that's client settings. Again, it's customizable per client. If I go to overall settings, you'll just see a list of the clients you've connected to Uncat, and then here's where you can invite your team, right? So as many users in your accounting or bookkeeping firm as you want, you can add here. There's a few different permission levels. Firm admin runs the whole show. Client admin can update client settings like we just looked at. Team members just going to update transactions in the dashboard. And then you can assign particular clients to specific users if you need to. Last, certainly not least, you can customize the color of the app. You can upload your own logo. That way it matches your brand feel. When you invite your clients, they know they're in the right place and you get a nice brand representation. So finally, I'll show you the dashboard. This is where the action happens. So you can see here the highlighted yellow transactions are ones that the client updated. So they provided a description. And so we can read that description based on that. We can categorize it. We can assign a class. We can expand it and choose customer tax, billable location, et cetera. If there are any attachments, we would see them here. We can also upload our own attachments. And if we have any follow-up questions for the client, just tap messages, send the client a message, and they'll be able to supplement their previous description. So sometimes the description might be a little incomplete. You need a little additional information back from the client. And this is a way to have that conversation straight within the app without jumping back to the inbox. So this is where you can categorize those transactions. Here are additional transactions we're still waiting on the client to answer. So it shows you if they're expense, income, et cetera. And then as we finish with one client, we can scroll down and here's additional clients, right? So it makes it really easy to do month-end close, year-end close, because you can see all of your clients on one screen in Uncat and just kind of go one to the next one versus having a whole bunch of browser tabs open, jumping between your clients when it's time for tax season. It's also easy to jump to clients here. So some firms might have a handful of clients, others have hundreds, and it's easy just to do a type ahead and jump to the right client. The other two tabs I'll briefly show, and then it'll be tax time. One is requests. So this is where you can say, hey, dear client, I need you to send me a W-9 for vendor ABC. And so send me an attachment, please, like a PDF, and then create. And that'll create that request, which the client's going to see in their dashboard. And then here are the receipts. So we've always supported receipts in the main dashboard for uncategorized transactions. This receipts tab, though, takes it to that next level where your client can upload a receipt for any transaction. And when they upload it, they can do so by dragging it here on the web, or they can email it in to their custom Uncat email address. It's a forwarding address, or they can text it in as long as their phone number is registered with Uncat. Any of the three methods will ingest the receipt. We will then look for vendor, date, amount, extract that information, and look for a matching transaction in QuickBooks. So for example, this first one here, $384.19 at Sam's Club, match found, right? So then as the accountant or bookkeeper, we can say, let's go ahead and match that transaction. It shows me the transactions from QuickBooks, and then I can match it. It will then sync as an attachment onto that transaction in QBO. So if there's not yet a match, it will stay in Uncat, wait for the next reconciliation from the bank feed, see if there's a match. Or let's say it was a cash transaction, I can always publish it. So I can say I want to publish as an expense or a bill because it's not going to come through into QuickBooks by itself. It'll come through Uncat because we have the receipt. So hopefully that's a quick whirlwind tour of Uncat. You got transactions, requests, receipts. So once you've gotten the information you need, you've gotten your bank statements, you've gotten your W-9s, you've gotten the receipts that you need from that proverbial shoebox or literal shoebox that Spencer talked about, and your client has answered for their uncategorized transactions. They've explained what they spent $500 on Amazon for. They explained those 10 Venmo deposits that they got that were kind of mysterious because we don't know who paid them through Venmo. They've got all those answers. Then it's going to kick over into a powerful platform like Tallyfor so that you can actually knock out and file your taxes. So hopefully that's a good segue over to Irvine and Spencer's going to take it away. Let me
Awesome.
jump to Zoom so that you can share your screen. There we go.
Lovely. All right. Let me pick up the baton here. Great. And yeah, I think as long as I've been aware of Uncat, one of the things that I've really, kind of been drawn to is the fact that when I see Tally4 users really come in with clean books, right? Take advantage of some of the additional tools that we have in the software. Some of the, statistics, if you will, in terms of their usage and their efficiency are pretty astounding. But it is so very much reliant on the clean books. And I really dig the way that Uncat kind of gives you a pathway to sort of the ideal state, which is, as Brandon mentioned, doing stuff on this weekly cadence. But if needed, you also can work in kind of a catch up fashion. Either way, right? We see it, every tax season at Tally4, right? There's such a vast difference between the experience that folks have when, all that kind of work is done in advance of tax preparation versus when this work gets crammed into tax season alongside everything else that compresses during that time of year. So right, Tally4, what we built is system. We want to make it easy for you to get your financial data from your accounting system into Tally4, give you a suite of tools to help you avoid manual data entry, repetitive tasks, human errors. And the end result is that you should be able to increase capacity without hiring people, or conversely, right, if you're having difficulty hiring people or lose somebody, this is a way to offset that, right? You can use the automation in your favor when we know that staffing, recruitment, retention can be a challenge. So what we like to say is give us financials and supporting docs and we'll transform them into your deliverables. So that's a big part of what we've been working on, is kind of accommodating the documents as well. Another thing that makes this complementary, right, is that many of the documents that Brandon and Uncat are going to collect are likely going to be involved with or part of the supporting documentation for the tax return, right? And so we give you a kind of a destination to bring those and organize those within the framework of the tax return. We also have been kind of doubling down on our general ledger integration. So as we move into next season, in addition to just simply being able to fetch those end of year financials from a QBO or Xero, we're going to give you the ability to do a lot of auto mapping, as well as post book journal entries back to these systems. Okay, pardon me. And then I mentioned, like, we've seen some pretty astounding stats. The current customer record for this past tax season, basically from the moment they hit the button to connect their accounting system to the moment they hit the button to put a file in UltraTax, they average 3.2 minutes per return. Again, so much of that is kind of a payoff for the work that they did throughout the year to come in with clean books. And then, another thing that we've been working on over the course of this year is what we call work less papers, right? So we want to give, all tax professionals, regardless of the size of the firm, a modern alternative to legacy work paper solutions, and provide just simple usage-based billing. So with Tally4, you pay for the returns that you're filing, essentially. Oops. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in, right? Again, what I'm going to do is give you a kind of a walkthrough of how you're really going to perform kind of the core tasks. Some of this is stuff, and I'll mention it, that you can set up ahead of time. And that's another way in which we try to kind of break that compression, right? If you think about Tally4 and Uncat, you could almost take some of the stuff that we do and see how that correlates directly with things that will pile up during busy season. And really, we're from each side trying to deliver some tools to take some of that work that gets so compressed, right, and give you a method for pulling it outside of that period or eliminate it altogether through automation. Okay, so I am now in a binder in Tallyfor. I have an imported trial balance. I got to this state through this import button, right? You can see that there's a number of different systems that we support. So there's 3 flavors for getting that data in here: connect to a QBO or Zero or FreshBooks. So do it via the API. You can put just bespoke reports from another system in here, a la like a QB desktop. You have also just a BYOTB option to populate our Excel trial balance and get the data in here. Um, any any of those methods will get you to this state where you're in a position that's similar to folks who maybe are doing their tax work papers and trial balance work in Excel. Right, I have my end of the year financials, but now I need to translate these to the tax return in some way, shape, or form. So there is a little toolkit in here to do the first bucket of work, which is the mapping and grouping. This is really a one-time exercise. It creates the entire structure of this binder. It will be what you use in your roll forward year after year. And it's something that we actually give our customers essentially free binders to do this ahead of time so that they can set up 2023, effectively copy data that already was filed, and have this thing ready to roll forward come busy season. Now, to get it in that state, you have 3 different options. You can work through this UI here, which is really a few different components. You have this drop down, which has your tax form, essentially, all the categories that are available. You have, right, these multi-select, so I can grab a whole bunch and assign them. You can rename accounts using these little tags. And you can also grab, say a collection of accounts, right? Let's even just say those 2, right? I would just want one line, group them. I'm not necessarily hitting these buttons right now because I'm about to do this in a manner where you can do all of this in a bulk fashion. And this is perhaps an area where even folks where we see that they can do this with a fraction of their book of business, in particular, when they can employ this with their write-up clients, it's massively powerful. So in addition to just working through this UI to perform all this mapping, you can also utilize a template. And this is something right now, as you're planning for busy season, you're looking at these engagements. If you were looking at using Tallyfor, I would definitely have a good understanding of how this works and how you could possibly leverage it. For context, right? I love the idea of, Uncat helping with those shoebox clients and those write-up clients. If you simply are using a standardized chart of accounts in the general ledger that you're using alongside Uncat, you can take that standardized chart of accounts. We'll work with you as part of your onboarding process to create a mapping file that effectively maps that master COA to the corresponding tax form. Right? And so it's a methodology, but really this middle column in the file I'm showing is basically the same thing as that drop down in the UI. And then the column I have right here is the same thing as those renaming and grouping. Right. So you create this once, right? You then have your system in place to kind of manage the incoming data and get the books cleaned up for those clients, and simply connect that accounting system to Tallyfor, pull the data in, and then apply the template. By applying that, it's now mapped the entire tax form. Right. And not only has it done that, it also kicked off some tax adjustments. Right. So I have an account here, non-taxable income. It got mapped to M1 line 5. And as a result, the system auto-created the JE here. You obviously can also have tools in here to do these JEs yourselves. And you'll notice we give you book, reclass, tax J's, as evidenced in the reporting as well. Kind of the other little counterpart in this adjustments sort of bucket of tasks or tools are these tax only accounts, right? So you can keep accounts in here that are specific to your tax work that only are really existing in Tallyfor for the purposes of filing the tax return. And at the end of all this, as you work to complete the work in here, very soon you'll have a button in here that'll push your book JEs back into the general ledger, i.e. Xero or QBO, when you've completed the return. Lastly, you've got documents to deal with. And this is great that, another complementary area, like I said, is the fact that oh yeah, Uncat's also collecting some docs. Well, now that we have those documents centralized, we can use this organization that we've basically done through the tax form to organize our documents and create our tax binder. And in Tallyfor, it's pretty simple. You simply drag and drop a doc onto an account. Let's drop a few of them on here. I'm reusing a pre-existing binder. That's why it's starting off at 4. It'll start off at 1 in a new binder. Let's just find a couple other things so we got some data to work with. Sure, let's do that. What else do I have? Let's do a bank rec. And for good measure, some AR. Okay, so I put a list of docs in there. We can see that each time I did that, one of these chips was generated. All right, you can click on that and it'll give you the corresponding document. You can see that the cross-reference has been applied there. You'll also now see it in your reports. All right, so the reports you can work through as you're reviewing. In the coming days, actually, we'll turn on the rest of the ad hoc annotations in here. So you'll really, in this view and in this document viewer that we provide, have everything that you would have inside of like Adobe Acrobat. All right, so you can annotate this, stamp it, do all those things accordingly. And then the last place where we use kind of that cross-referencing in the organization is in this file tree that we build out. All right, so this is kind of the tree that we're building out to match. I can jump into any document that I want right here. All right, and then when it's time, let's imagine I've worked through kind of these 3 primary tasks: the mapping/grouping, the adjustments, bringing in my documents. I'm going to arrive at a state where I'm ready to really publish this binder and pull some data out of here. So, all right, simply select what you want, finalize it. The system will stitch it together into that binder. Oops, that's an old one I didn't hear. Here's the one I just did. All right, so we use the cross-referencing and the structure of the tax return to create the table of contents and all the bookmarks. All right, and right about now, you're going to be focusing, switching over to pulling stuff out of Tallyfor. All right, so this binder is available to come out for your document storage. Same thing, pardon me, with the reports. These guys in the reports view, all available via Excel. Grab individuals or a bundle. You also have your JEs. So if you're not going to be using our JE write back feature to push them straight back in, you can kind of do it the old fashioned way. You're just going to sort, filter these out, pull the book JEs, send those off to the client. And then last but definitely not least, pardon me, is this tax file, right? When you're going to select your tax product when you set up your Tallyfor account, we'll take care of the translation and basically produce a file that's pre-formatted for your filing product. So you simply download it and then go over to your filing product. In this case, I've got UltraTax. All right, so I simply, I'll skip it back a sec, went utilities, trial balance Excel import. This is similar to many of the products. And at this point, I'm simply just going to find that file that I downloaded from Tallyfor, open it up in here, and let it populate the data. All right, and there we go. And it's a relatively similar process for pretty much every tax product out there. All right, and then I guess sort of to put a bow on all of this, and I mentioned that everything that I do in here is going to be part of my roll forward. So here we go. I'm just going to roll this within 2023. So you build this out in the roll forward. Essentially, it's going to take a copy of your check. It's going to take your checklist, your perm file, all the mappings and groupings, including things like tax only accounts, the renaming, the grouping. It'll take all the JEs, right? And basically at this point, it's just waiting for you now to get another set of clean books and dump it all in here. So I know we're up against time and set to wrap up here. So just a parting message from myself. Anybody who wants to, who's not familiar with Tallyfor, wants to jump right in, check out our trial. You got some free binders in there. We're here to help along the way, and you'll get access to some regular webinars and education that we run. And yeah, we know it's November, so we're all hands on deck, both us and I'm sure Brandon's team as well, getting folks ready for the upcoming busy season.
All right. That was great, Spencer.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. If anybody has a quick question for us, we can hold for just a minute. Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
Oh, Beth had a question. Does this only no with UT? We work with all the major, like all the common tax products. So the Thompson products, Access and Pro System, Lacert and Pro Connect, Drake, and then Tax Cycle in Canada. Hey Joe, sorry I missed you. I'll catch you at the next one. Glad you're on. Right. Go ahead.
Looks like that'll do it. Thanks, Spencer. And thanks everybody for joining us. We'll send out a recap tomorrow with the recording and the deck. And you can reply to that if you have any questions for anybody. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a great week, folks.